Imagine waking up tomorrow with no monetary constraints, no limitations at all, actually, and the freedom to choose your perfect day. Close your eyes if you wish, and imagine. Where in the world would you wake up? How would you spend your time? Who would you spend it with? What would your day look like, smell like, sound like, and feel like? You can open your eyes. Now, I have asked this question to literally hundreds of people over the years, and guess what? 99% of them can't even answer it. They have never actually thought about or imagined their perfect day, let alone how to describe it in detail. Now, why is this? Well, I believe it's because somewhere along the way, we stopped chasing our dreams. We stopped imagining what our perfect life would look like, and we started handing over the reins to society, who told us what to do and how to live. And I was one of those people for a while. I'd given up on my freedom, and now I wanted it back. So what is the definition of freedom, you may ask? Well, according to the Oxford Dictionary, it is the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants. Now, these days I've become a little bit obsessed with freedom, and for the last 6 years I have been living out of my suitcase, traveling to 69 countries around the world, and essentially figuring out and experimenting how to live and work from anywhere. And I finally found the perfect freedom business model that allows me to do this. I believe freedom is a right, not a privilege, and so today I'd like to share the 3 stages of freedom that I have discovered on my journey so that you can apply it to your life. Stage 1 is to free your mind from the conventional ways of living. So it is actually about 8 years ago to this very day, and I'm in London, England. To the outside world, I look like I have it all together. I've worked my way up the corporate ladder to end up in a senior management position, loads of pay, lots of responsibility, a whole team under me, and yet I'm not happy. In fact, something on the inside of me is dying a little, and I realize that I've given away my freedom. Somebody else is telling me when to wake up in the morning, what to do, how to act, how to feel. And I realize in this moment, this is obviously not what I want. I watch co-workers coming to work each day, checking in and checking out like robots. They're not even present. They're missing out on the most important moments of their life. We all are. And then it hit me one day when I was on my daily commute to work, on the tube, in complete silence, squished in like a sardine with thousands of others, no eye contact. I know a lot of you know this feeling. And I realized that I am wasting 45 minutes a day commuting to and from work. I'm giving up 15.6 days in a year to dedicate myself to being a sardine. I mean, isn't that ridiculous? And when you look at the 9-to-5 rat race, it's totally inefficient. We go to work every day from 9 to 5, and shops, post offices, dentists, banks, they all open just as we're going to work, and they close right about the time that we're leaving work, which means if we want to get anything done, we have to go out in the lunch hour or after work with everybody else and queue up to do it. This is just totally inefficient, and if this is a race, nobody's going to win it. Now, I asked myself, how did I get to this place? How did I get to a place where I'd work myself into a job I thought I wanted, to earn money to buy things I didn't need, to work for somebody else on their terms, and to have zero impact on the world? Can I have a show of hands in here if anybody else has ever felt like this or currently feels like this? Right, oh, a heap of you, even up the back. Right, now you're not actually alone. In a recent global study of 120,000 participants, a staggering 48% of people stated that they were unhappy in their jobs. 48%. So I figure at this point, if that's you, you have 2 options. 1, quit, escape now. 2, make the most of what you have. Can you ask for flexible working hours so that you can turn up to work earlier, leave a little later, and miss that dreaded commute? Or could you have some work from home days where it's been proven you will be more productive and efficient? Now, I can guarantee you which option I took here. I had just received a promotion, I had received a raise, and I had bought a house in London. And so I did what any other sane person would do. I handed in my notice. I sold off everything I owned. I packed up what was left into a suitcase, and I booked a one-way flight to Vancouver, Canada, to play World Championship Ultimate Frisbee, which I love, and to live the dream. Stage 2 is to do work you love that supports your ideal lifestyle. So here I am, I've landed in Vancouver, Canada, and I realized one very important thing. I am now, in fact, homeless, jobless, and I have no freaking idea what I'm going to do. Luckily, I met my business partner at a networking event, and we co-founded a technology company called Fundraiser. Now, the next 18 months were a complete roller coaster ride of the startup world. I love the pace, I love the challenge, I love using all my experience and knowledge to draw on from the corporate world and apply it to this business. What I didn't love was that we were working really long hours. We were drinking too much bad coffee, and I certainly wasn't getting to play enough Ultimate Frisbee. And I realized I've built myself another job. Except this one has 10 times the responsibility, way less freedom, and way less flexibility. About this time, I had an honest chat with my business partner, and he said, "Natalie, you know that blog that you've been writing? Perhaps you should go off and turn that into a business since you're so passionate about it." And I was like, great idea. So a few months later, we parted amicably. This is around April 2010. And I realized I have a blog and no way of getting paid. So for the next 6 months, I hustled like crazy. And until I was down to the last $17 in my bank account, which is not a nice feeling at all, I finally found a paying client. And then I went on to actually sell out 3 social media workshops. And to the outside world, once again, it looked like I had it going on. I mean, I could afford my rent, I had clients lining up, and I had a good reputation around town. But I knew at this point I needed to take a risk if I wanted to live the life that I really wanted to live and have the right business, which was one that allowed me location independence and freedom. So I packed up my stuff, gave away the rest, and booked a one-way flight to Buenos Aires, Argentina, to dance tango, to learn Spanish, and to eat as many empanadas as I possibly could. And at first I thought, I'm taking control. It was exhilarating. And then I soon realized that I had once again built myself less freedom. The business was the dictator of my life. I was stressed out, I didn't have much money, and the very thing that I'd gone to Argentina to do, I wasn't able to. And I realized as I kept traveling from country to country that when I was working on my business, I felt guilty for not being a tourist and exploring the country that I'd come to visit. And when I was off being a tourist, I felt guilty that I wasn't working on my business. And in this moment of grace, I realized this isn't freedom. I'm working harder than ever, all by myself, and even though I love what I'm doing, I am not making this happen. I am going to burn out. I'm going to end up resenting what I actually started out to do in the first place. And so, I bit the bullet. I hired my first ever contractor, Margaret, my virtual assistant, and in 2 weeks, I handed over everything that I knew that she needed to do to run my business without me. And then, I put it all to the test. I signed up to Tour d'Afrique, which is a bike ride of 6,500 kilometers or 4,000 miles. And I found myself cycling from Nairobi, Kenya, to Cape Town, South Africa. Now, what did I learn? First off, I learned that I got really, really sexy tan lines. Second, I had a massively sore butt and it never stopped hurting. And thirdly, I got so many flat tires, they nicknamed me Flatterly. What else I learned is that while I was watching wild elephants cross my path and see hyenas and giraffes come into our camp at night, that I was, in fact, making money online. I also learned nobody missed me on social media. Nobody cared that I wasn't Facebooking or tweeting or answering their email. And as I cycled 160 kilometre plus days, raising money for Women Win and going on the biggest personal challenge of my life, I felt incredibly free, the freest I had ever felt. So when I got back from that trip, I decided to take it to the next level. I put systems in place. I hired more people in my team, and essentially, I set about creating a sales funnel that was automated. I worked myself out of a job and into the position of leading my company, the Suitcase Entrepreneur, dedicated to helping 1 million entrepreneurs create freedom in business and adventure in life. I even redefined what freedom meant to me. I made up a new adjective. I am now a freedomist. I can do what I want, when I want, where I want. I'm making more money than I ever realized. I'm having more fun, I'm having more adventure, I'm living the dream. And what's more, I was meeting hundreds of people around the world doing this for themselves, creating their own freedom plan. Like the Denning family of 6 children who travel around the world while they run their freelance business. To Sam and Janine in New Zealand, who both have businesses they run from home and 20 hours a week or less so they can spend quality time with their adorable children. To Jody and Nat, who are full-time professional house sitters. They get to live around the world for free, looking after adorable dogs and cats. To Paul and Cheryl, who basically make and sell TV programs from their yacht while sailing around the world. I mean, these guys have got it made. To designers and developers and entrepreneurs who work on cool projects while traveling, like Hacker Paradise Community. And I found out that there's literally nothing that you can't do when you appreciate what your perfect day is, and then you go about creating the right freedom plan to make it a reality. Which leads me into stage 3. Define your own version of freedom and live it. So it's summer of 2015, and I find myself in beautiful Portugal. I've rented an apartment with this amazing view. I'm drinking sangria like it's going out of fashion. I've got good-looking Portuguese men around me. I've got my little scooter I've nicknamed Blue Steel, and I'm racing around town, working from rooftop bars and cafes and hanging out at beaches. And I realized for the first time in 6 years, I feel like this is a country that I could call home. My community and my podcast listeners tell me that I sound happy, and I am happy, and I feel free. Strike forward a couple of weeks and I'm speaking to 500 digital nomads at a conference. Honoured to speak to them actually and tell them all about creating their own freedom plan and building a community. And I walk off stage and I'm on a real high. And then I get the worst call of my life. It's from my sister back home. She tells me that Dad is in hospital and they're not sure that he's going to come out. Now, when you're halfway around the world from the people that you love most, this is a really difficult thing to hear. For the next couple of days, I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can barely function. And then my mum calls me from the hospital bed crying, and she says, "Nat, can you come home?" And I'm like, absolutely. So I jump on the first flight out of there, pack up my bag into a suitcase, give back my scooter, and go on the longest 36-hour journey back to New Zealand. When I get there, jet-lagged, sleep-deprived, I go straight to the hospital. Now, Mum warns me that he might not be able to recognise me. Fortunately, he did. But the next 5 months were the hardest roller coaster ride, and a different kind of roller coaster that I had never experienced emotionally. He relapsed twice more, and on the 3rd visit to hospital, he never came out. Now that day, on December 1st of last year, I lost not only an amazing father, but I lost my best friend, who I adored. And I had 2 very important life realizations in that moment. One is that my definition of freedom had found new meaning. It wasn't what I wanted to do, when I wanted, where I wanted. Now it was the ability to drop everything in the moment, to come halfway around the world, to be with the most important people in my life who I loved. And I am so fortunate and grateful that I had built a freedom business that allowed me to do this. Had I still been in my 9-to-5 or in my non-freedom related business that I felt trapped in, I probably wouldn't have been able to afford the flight, let alone take more than 2 weeks off really. And I would have been pulled between working on that and being with my family. And the second point that I want to make is that your definition of freedom is completely unique to you. Whether you want to wake up in a yurt in a forest, whether you want to sail around the world, whether you want to take 6 months off around the world with your family to live and work anywhere. Perhaps freedom to you means the right to vote, the right to education. Perhaps it means the right to be single or married, to have a beautiful home, or to have no home at all. Heck, it might even mean that you want to be the world's fastest flat tire changer, which is a title that I'm very happy to give back to you. So once again, it comes down to choice. What do you want your life to look like? What is your freedom plan? Imagine if you had an extra 10 hours a week and more income. Where would you wake up in the world? How would you spend your time? Who would you spend it with? What would it look like, sound like, smell like, and feel like? No more excuses, no more some days. You do have time, you do have choice, you do have the right to choose freedom.